Okay, I'm here with my friend Emily Bell, and we're going to talk about her job. All right, Emily, can you tell me what your position is?
Yes, so my position is I'm the Florida Invasive Species Partnership Coordinator, and I also help coordinate invasive species programming for the University of Florida IFAS.
Okay, well, that's a big title. What, what made you choose this field?
So my background is actually in social science, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more through some of the other questions. But I've always been really interested in environmental issues, especially how the intersection of kind of the sociology of people and our communities and our cultures and how that intersects with how we relate to our environment. So honestly, I kind of just started applying for jobs I thought would be interesting, which started me out as a park ranger. And because of my social science background, was able to move into some more kind of educational type roles. And so I chose this field because as somebody who grew up in Florida, is from Florida, I just am really deeply connected to the environment, and I always kind of wanted my work to be somehow related to helping support and be a part of conservation work.
Oh, yeah, I can relate to that for sure. What does your day-to-day look like in your job?
My day to day, so every day is a little different, but it's, I'm a program coordinator, so there's a lot of email writing, there's a lot of just kind of connecting folks, creating some creative content. So I do some social media stuff. So, writing up some educational invasive species content, meetings. One thing that one of my skill sets that I do is kind of facilitation, making sure meetings are meaningful and have an objective driven and we get something done. So bringing groups of people together to kind of move projects forward is probably the biggest focus of what I work on.
Yeah, so a little bit of matchmaking,
Mm-hmm.
networking, putting people together.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, because my programs are statewide, it's a lot of, um, like you said, connecting somebody from one agency with somebody from another agency if they have, to work together. Or the Florida Invasive Species Partnership helps coordinate regional groups called Cooperative Invasive Species Management Areas. So I work with those different region groups to help connect them with what's going on across the state or with partners in their own region and things like that.
Can you tell me a little bit about those cooperative area, the management areas?
Yeah. So the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Areas, we just call them CISMAs for short, they are a coalition of the willing. It's totally voluntary to participate, but in general, it's the agencies in the region that have a stake in invasive species work. Typically, your public land managers, so your FWC, Department of Environmental Protection folks, your Nature Conservancy, Audubon, different groups like that. But they are fully open, and so anyone can get involved in kind of understanding what they do and what they work on. So the biggest thing is, as we know with invasive species, we like to say they know no boundaries, and so one land manager can be working on invasive species and be doing pretty good on their property, but if it's right at their fence line and the next property over isn't doing anything, they're going to have that constant reinfestation. So we want folks in our region to be communicating about what the issues are and how they can work together to solve them. And so that's essentially what CISMA's biggest goal is. So they have kind of a three-pronged approach. All CISMAs maintain early detection and rapid response lists for their area, so that you have this network of partners who kind of all have their eye out for the same things that they could tackle early if they appear. They also do education and outreach in the community, so they get involved in like big events where they can have a table, or they're a great resource if you're looking for a speaker for your community group or something like that. They can usually pull somebody to do something like that. And then they also do a lot of partnering on actual boots on the ground work. So they have partner work days, both with their public land partners, but also with private land partners. So we've got SISMAs that work with, say, a homeowners association or a condo association that is interested in tackling something on their property. And so they form partnerships to help them do that type of work.
Oh, yeah. I think we need to call the SISMA for our town here. We need to
I'm sure. Yeah,
help
actually, you
them.
should, because you're in the North Central
Yeah,
Florida SISMA, and they're really interested in working
yeah,
with folks like that. So
yeah. All right. I'm going to give them a call.
yeah.
Um, what do you think the positive impacts your job has are?
Actually, that's kind of a tough question for me because a lot of my work is so I want to say mid-level in the sense of like you've got your boots on the ground people who go out and are doing the actual land management, and I think there's some tangible things you can see with that. In a role like mine, sometimes it can feel like there's less tangible things to grasp onto of like actual impacts, but I also I think one of the things that's important about positions like mine and others that I've worked in and other programs that I'm aware of is that over the last, I would say decade or so, there has been a real recognition of the importance of bringing social science into conservation work. So, linking up the not only just how critical it is to understand how to communicate with the communities that you're working with, and maybe what's more effective, and bringing people together, and even like I said, those facilitation skills, so that when we have meetings, people feel like they're productive and that we're moving forward on something. But also just things like tracking tracking some of those less tangible things. So, how many people are we reaching? Are they reporting that, maybe behavior change and things like that? So I hope that what my impact is that people feel more connected, that we are actually, getting people to reach across land boundaries and bringing people into the conversation, and that people, just in general, that we're educating more people, raising awareness of the issue, and making people feel like they're a part of the solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of why we asked that question is to make you kind of think and brag about what you're doing, and really think deeply about the impacts that you may not think about day to day. But
Mm-hmm.
and positions like yours are extremely important in getting people together and promoting education programs, and that's a lot. I think where we can make a huge impact is providing education outreach and raising awareness, and creating concern for invasive plants and their impacts. Because a lot of people see green plants and think, well, what could possibly be wrong? Especially beautiful green plants, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
invasives always are. Like,
Right.
how,
I will say one thing that kind of always brings me a little satisfaction is, through some of our social media work, when, we have a conversation with somebody, or even because in my position, when you Google like invasive species in Florida, the Florida Invasive Species Partnership will come up. I get a lot of random emails and phone calls, and then communications via Facebook, and it is always really rewarding to talk to an individual who had some interest, or reached out to you for some reason, but then is like, you can tell kind of that they're going to move forward with the conversation you had, or on social media when somebody replies like, oh, I didn't know that was invasive, but I do now, and I'll take care of it. And that's always kind of like, oh, okay, I did something today.
oh, I can relate to that 100% for sure. Yeah. What if you could choose the same, like if you had to do it over again, would you choose a similar career that you're in now? Would you choose this path?
Probably. I think I think for me, and I want to be kind of careful how I word this in talking to this audience. What's cool about what I've done with my career is that I've used my skill sets, which are things like facilitation and kind of organization, and to work in an area that I really feel passionate about, but I'm not, you know, there was a point at which I almost went kind of a more research biological sciences route. And some of that stuff just wasn't in my biggest strengths, you know? And so I think, you know, go for what you are passionate about. And so, you know, I don't want to say like, oh, I wasn't good at this. And so, but at the same time, you know, I found a way to transition what I am good at and what I do feel like is a place I can make a positive impact and work in an area that I really care about. And so I think, yeah, I think I would probably go a similar route.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything better than that, really, is taking what you feel passionate about and capitalizing on that to build a career. I think, yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the big things I tell people about my position is that, you know, I'm an example of the fact that you don't necessarily have to go that route to work in an area that you're passionate about. I mean, my career has really been built on experience. I started interning, you know, and then like I said, I was a park ranger because I applied for those jobs because I thought like that's meaningful work. And then it transitioned into opportunities that were more in my, you know, what I kind of was like my schooling and whatnot and my skills. And so, you know, I guess I want people to know that you don't necessarily have to have, like, everyone doesn't have to have the same exact background to like get into this work.
Right.
You know, if you're passionate about it and if you just, you know, continue to get experience, you can, you know, that works too. That's a path you can take.
Yeah. What is your education background?
So I have an anthropology and sociology degree from the University of Florida. And then from there, I went into the workforce. I did an internship with the Nature Conservancy. And then, as I've mentioned multiple times now, I became a park ranger. But what's interesting about that is that the place that I was hired to be a ranger was a National Estuarine Research Reserve. And so if you're not familiar with the NERR's program, it's really cool. It's a federal state partnership with NOAA, where focused on estuary ecosystems. And they have three main programs. They have the land management, hence park rangers and stuff like that. They have K through 12 education, plus coastal training, which is for adult audiences, decision makers, people who, you know, work in the area in the fields, and they have research. And so because that's a place that I kind of landed when that's how I was able to transition into the coastal training program, which is where I really kind of built a lot of my work experience. So, and then from there, I actually got a really amazing opportunity to do some invasive species planning for the state of Hawaii. So I was out there for a couple of years, and then just kind of returned to my roots in Florida and got here. And so again, it's just, you know, everybody has a different path in how they get where they're going, and all paths are, you know, equally important.
Right.
So
yeah.
I kind of hope that that's a lesson in my trajectory, is that if you're passionate about something, you know, and you start working and building experience, then, you know, that works too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. What do you think the future holds for careers in education coordination, or in career paths like you have? Like, what do you think the future is like for, you know, this burgeoning group of young kids interested in invasive species, especially as it relates to, you know, education coordination?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, I think the awareness of the need to bring social science information into how we tackle environmental issues is only, you know, getting stronger. And so I think it's good, you know, as I mentioned, NOAA was kind of one of the leaders in this with the coastal training program through the National Estuarine Research Reserve program, and other organizations have done similar things. So I think, and then I look to other groups that I've worked with. Some of my colleagues from Hawaii, expanding beyond invasive plants a little bit. I have colleagues who do similar roles, but for issues like waste management and climate change and other natural resource issues. So I think, I think it's a growth field right now. This whole coordination, network building,
Right.
I think is maybe kind of a buzzword / term, but it's an important one, because with all of these issues that are all related, really, these kind of natural resource and environmental issues, I think that skill set of network building and bringing people to the table together to work across agencies and boundaries and political associations and all of that is critical. So, I certainly hope just to continue to see roles like that grow and be available.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That so often, I think people, agencies kind of just put their head down and tackle problems and fail to realize that there is, a group of people working on similar problems, or there's lots of help out there that you just have to, you need somebody to connect you. Those are my questions for you. Do you have any last advice for kids hoping to get into a field like yours? Or
I think, I think I've said it, is just, when you find something you're passionate about, and, there's a lot of different ways to get there, I guess, would be what I would say. And, don't get discouraged if, one avenue doesn't. I guess, maybe when I started, because I did go into like a biological sciences track in school first, and it didn't really work out for me. And that was a really big bummer, because my dream had been to work in, environmental and natural resources stuff. And, but honestly, what I did was I sat down and I read the course catalog, and I was like, what can I do? Like what? And again, I want to be careful about how I say that, because I could have, done the other thing, and you can do anything. I do believe that. But just for me, it wasn't working. And so I kind of found this anthropology, sociology studies, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I really enjoyed the work. And I did well at it because I enjoyed it. And so, I would just say, there's a lot of different paths to a place, as long as it's something that you care about. And, find a way to use the skills that you have, and that, that to help you get there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's perfect advice. I wish I could have heard that when I was a kid. Oh gosh. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Yeah. And with that, I guess we'll sign off. Thanks, Emily.
My pleasure.